So my husband started 2 men's groups years ago, and we're both realizing a lot of these men's groups are missing something important. Deconstructing patriarchy. I want to go into this because it's on my mind and I just need to get it out there. You know, he's been doing a lot of research on this, and for those of you who are new here, I wrote this article for Harper's Bazaar like 5 years ago. It went super viral. Saturday Night Live did a skit about this called Dog Park that Vanity Fair gave me credit for. Whatever. This was a life-changing article, and I'm so proud of my work in that. But you know, if I had to write that article again, I would add some stuff, because what I have seen is that a lot of men have realized, because of that article, because of other articles, because of the conversations that have been happening for the last several years, that men don't really have, not all men, I'm making fun, I'm only saying that to mock people. Men don't really have close friendships. Most of them do not. They have friendships where they go and they, go climbing, or they play games together, but they don't actually have like deep connection, and they rely on women for all that emotional labor, especially cis-het men. It's not only cis-het men, but it's very much cis-het men, because they marry women and then they rely on them for everything, right? We already know this. We've been talking about this forever. And so where the conversation has gone since then is like, yeah, men need to work on their emotional intelligence. Men need to learn how to have connections with others. Men need to learn how to rely on each other for support instead of their wives for literally everything, because women have been conditioned to already build community and weave that social fabric and turn to other people rather than just their partner for their emotional needs. Now, again, as I've talked about before, some of these women, because their men suck so bad and provide no emotional labor whatsoever, they rely too heavily on their friends and family, or just women in general, to do the work that their husbands won't do, which is show up and be there for their partner on any level, but especially for her emotional needs. And the men in these relationships are doing the opposite. They don't put that burden on anybody but her, right? Or maybe their sister or mom, right? Definitely not on other men. But as Anthony's been doing research, because he really wants to start helping other men beyond his men's group, and also just being married to me, like, he can't just not think about this all the time, especially since my job is talking about patriarchy and capitalism, white supremacy culture, and how they're all tied together, and how, especially how this is very personal. Patriarchy shows up in the marriage, especially in the homes, and a lot of men don't want to look at that. They don't want to look at that. They will be like, yeah, I need a men's group. And they'll go and they'll do that thing to relieve her of that burden. However, what a lot of these men's groups are still not doing is talking about exploiting their wives. I remember one of my friends whose partner is in one of the groups was saying, I think they all need to read Fair Play. They need to all read that book together so they can discuss the way patriarchy plays out. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's a really great idea. And Anthony's been realizing that in his work, any work that he does with men in the future, it can't be done. You can't have men's groups are not going to go anywhere. They're not actually going to do much. They're not actually going to help with anything if they're not deconstructing patriarchy. And by what I mean by that is for men to look at how they are exploiting the women they claim to love the most. And they may not even realize the extent that they're doing it. It's not always intentional. It's not always malicious. It is conditioning of, I'm the center of the world, and she will do whatever I want. Other times, just they didn't know how to do this, so they're just not going to learn. Right? Instead of being like, maybe I should learn to do this, right? And a lot of it starts when their wives start putting boundaries. They're like, I'm not doing all this. You're going to do some of this too. And they're like, oh, okay, right? None of these, you will never convince me that any cishet man married to a woman, I don't care how progressive he is, there's not a single one of them that is not going to somehow exploit her labor. And I'm not even talking about the terrible, the dudes who make their wives like a married single mom. I'm saying men who love the crap out of their wives, right? And then they don't see how that entitlement that comes with patriarchy kind of seeps into everything in their life. I've given examples before, and I'm going to give more examples. I'm going to launch a Patreon this week, and I'll go into more personal details behind a paywall because I don't want to talk about my personal life in every area for just anybody. But I will give you a couple examples. For example, Anthony didn't realize that I was managing our social life until like a birthday party. I don't know if it was last year or year before or something, when he realized that all of his friends that showed up at that birthday party he met because of me. And that really upset him. He was like, God, everything is through you. Because first of all, I'm an immigrant, so I have no choice but to be very active to try to make friends, or I just won't have any, especially in France, because it's so hard to make friends here, because they kind of have this like, stay friends with your school people forever, which I value and respect, but you have to work really, really hard. Plus there's the culture barrier and the language barrier and all this stuff, right? So and plus I've traveled so much and I've moved so many times, like I've gotten really good at putting myself out there, feeling stupid, and then making friends. Where he doesn't have as much practice as that. He's also a man, and why would he put as much effort into that when he was meeting so many cool people through me? And so he recognized, oh, wow. Like and I started communicating. Do you have any idea how many times I send messages, text, Facebook messages? Like I am constantly trying to build my community, and by proxy, you are benefiting from it. And it didn't become crystal clear until at his birthday party, all but one of his friends was because of me and the work that I did. And so that's just one example. There's other ones. And this man loves the crap out of me. You know what I mean? And he has been actively deconstructing patriarchy, but instead of being like, no, I don't, he was like, wow, like we're all learning and growing here. And instead of getting defensive or shame spiraling into this realization, he knew that what he needed to do was start taking action and take responsibility for his social life too, so that he could introduce me to new people. And he's done that. And so our community has grown as a result of him showing up and doing more labor for himself and as for us as a couple. And so what I see happening all the time is a lot of men will join like a men's group that's all about men, learning how to take care of themselves, talking about their emotions and la 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 la. And yet they will spend the whole weekend riding bikes or like just doing stuff. And so like in an attempt to like build their community and like have men, they still throw their wives under the bus in terms of time. They still exploit those women's time and those women's labor, because who is staying home with all 3 kids while they go mountain biking all weekend, every weekend with their men's group? Right? And so because he watches all my videos, all of them, and he learns a lot, and he reads all the comments too. So he sees women's stories all the time, right? He's just been like the most crash course feminist, just being married to me, because the more I learn, I'm sharing with him, and like we're learning together, right? And so he's been realizing that any men's group that isn't putting patriarchy in the center of the conversations, and the entitlement and the individualism and the exploitation of labor in the center of those conversations is really not actually going to save their marriage or make them a better brother, son, father, coworker, friend, whatever. Because if they are still exploiting women, at the end of the day, what's the point? Okay, cool, you go talk to your men about your problems so I don't have to hear all about all of it. But if that's all it is I have to do a little bit less free therapy, right? I say I as like just a woman in general, not me, because he has never relied on me for that. Because before we got married, I was like, you need more friends. I'm not going to do this. You read my article. You need to start a men's group. He started 2. But if all they're doing is like forming friendship, but those friendships are at the expense of the women in their life and the labor of those women, and they're still centering themselves as like, I have feelings now. I can talk about my feelings. Great, bro. But if they're not addressing the entitlement and not being thoughtful of their impact on women in every area of their life, they're not really deconstructing shit. Whatever progress they've made is at the expense of the woman they claim to love. Men's groups without deconstructing patriarchy, what's the point?